It is always extremely difficult to be objective about the life of the founder of a belief system such as Muhammad, as his personality is inevitably blurred by an aura of the miraculous. Early biographers are preoccupied not with historical facts, but with glorifying in every way the memory of one they believe to have been a messenger of Allah. Consequently, there is a rich accretion of myth and miracle, mysterious portents and heavenly signs of copying and plagiarizing from other religious beliefs and traditions. It is in fact the propaganda of an expanding faith. One of the sources that we frequently quote from is Ibn Ishaq's Biography of Muhammad. So we decided that our listeners should get to know something about such a prolific and honest author. Behind the legendary Muhammad, there lies very important stories that give us a more authentic picture of Muhammad the man, with all his ambitions, fears, anger, lust, jealousy, love, revenge, deception, aggression, etc. Although very little is known about his earlier years, the first certain date being that of the migration from Mecca to Medina, called the Hijrah, which took place in AD 622, it is still possible to build up the events of his real life as distinct from his symbolic one based upon the reports of the Seerah. The most comprehensive biography of Muhammad, called Sirat Rasulullah, was written decades after his death by Muhammad ibn Ishaq, who died 767. It is the fact that there exist no documents describing Muhammad and his formative years contemporaneous with him. All the relevant details were written with the benefit of hindsight and with the purpose of creating a distorted image of a man of almost mythic and superhuman qualities, sinless, isma', divinely inspired, faultless, fearless, political genius, etc. His life had to be made perfect to reflect the alleged miracle of the Quranic revelations. It became the compulsory sunnah for all Muhammadans, a way of daily life to be emulated by them in every detail, since it was the copy of the most perfect man, Muhammad. This doctrine has fixed the mentality and traditions of the Muhammadan Muslims in a time warp forever stuck in the 7th century. Ibn Ishaq was the first and nearest in time to the stories about Muhammad, since he wrote the biography about 100 years after his death. Unlike many later authors of Muhammad's alleged sayings and doings, gleaned from the 8th to the 10th mouths of reporters almost 200 to 300 years after his death. Muhammad ibn Ishaq ibn Yasar was born in Medina about 75 years after the death of Muhammad in 632-33 AD. His grandfather, Yasar, fell into the hands of Khalid ibn al-Walid when he captured Ain al-Tamr in 634 AD, having been held there as a prisoner by the Persian king. He was freed when he accepted Islam. Yasar's children, Ishaq and Musa, became traditionists, thus paving the way and preparing the author's life even before he reached manhood. Muhammad ibn Ishaq was associated with the second generation of traditionists, called the Tabi'een, the followers, who saw some of the Sahaba, companions, but not Muhammad, notably Az-Zuhri, Asim bin Umar bin Qatada, and Abdullah bin Abu Bakr. All these authors were so near to the events they recorded that they needed no isnad, chain of transmitters, to cite their authority or to prove the veracity of their collections. The isnad was needed much later on, when the traditions were removed several centuries after the death of Muhammad, and tens of thousands of made-to-order stories were concocted to fit in with the agenda of a one sect or a ruler or another. His study of Muhammad's Sunnah, Muhammad's alleged deeds, sayings and traditions must have started very early, for at the age of 30 he went to Egypt to attend the lectures of Yazid bin Abu Habib. There he was regarded as an authority, for the same Yazid, his tutor, afterwards related traditions on Ibn Ishaq's authority. On his return to Medina, he went on with the collection and arrangement of the material he collated. Al-Zuhri, who was in Medina in 123 AH, is reported to have remarked that the Medina would never lack ilm, religious knowledge, as long as Ibn Ishaq was there, and he eagerly gathered from him the details of Muhammad's wars. Although Ibn Ishaq's Seerah was preceded by several maghazi, books of conquests of unknown dates, nonetheless, there is no doubt that his biography of Muhammad had no serious rival. Muhammad ibn Ishaq, who died in 150 or 151 AH, is unquestionably the principal authority on the Seerah, Muhammad's biography, and Maghazi, conquest literature. Every writing after him has depended on his work, which, though lost in its entirety, has been immortalized in the wonderful extant abridgment of his pioneering work by Abu Muhammad Abdul Malik bin Hisham, or Ibn Hisham, who died 833 AD. Ibn Ishaq's work is notable for its excellent rigorous methodology, and its literary style is of the highest standard of elegance and beauty. This is hardly surprising when we recall that he was an accomplished scholar not only in the Arabic language but also in the science of hadith. For this reason, most of the isnad, chain of narration, that he gives in his seerah are also to be found in the authentic books of hadith. Ibn Ishaq, like Bukhari and Muslim later on, traveled very widely in the Muslim world in order to authenticate the isnad of his hadith. It is reported that he saw and heard Sa'id bin al-Musaybah, Aban ibn Uthman bin Affan, al-Zuhri, Abu Salama bin Abdul Rahman bin Auf, and Abdul Rahman bin Hurmuz al-A'raj. It is also reported that Ibn Ishaq was the teacher of the following outstanding authorities, among others: Yahya bin Sa'id al-Ansari, Sufyan al-Thawri, Ibn Jurayh, Shu'bah bin al-Hajjaj, Sufyan bin Uyayna, Hamad bin Zayd. The second most authoritative book on Seerah is that of Al-Maghazi, Conquests, by Muhammad bin Umar al-Waqidi al-Salami, who lived from 130 to 207 AH and is buried in Baghdad. This book was widely read in various parts of the Muslim world. The third authoritative work on Seerah is Ibn Sa'd's Tabaqat al-Kubra, 9 volumes. Ibn Sa'd was both the student and the scribe secretary of al-Waqidi. The quality and scholarly excellence of this Tabaqat al-Kubra say a great deal about the academic competence of his teacher and patron. Ahmad bin Jafar bin Wahab, called al-Yaqubi, his work is unique for its examples of Muhammad's sermons not to be found elsewhere, especially those containing instruction and admonition. Ahmad bin Yahya bin Jabir died in 279 AH, called al-Baladuri. The work of this early historian is valuable for the text it contains of certain important agreements which Muhammad concluded with some groups and individuals, among others the texts of his agreements with the Christians of Najran and his agreement with the people of Makhna. Ibn Jarir died in 310, called Al-Tabari, authored a monumental world history, Ta'rikh al-Umam wal-Muluk. Al-Tabari was not merely a historian, but also an unrivaled authority on the Arabic language and grammar, on hadith and fiqh, and on tafsir, exegesis, and the interpretation of the Quran. Evidence of the excellence of his scholarship, his prodigious and untiring intellectual genius, is provided by his major works, which run into many lengthy volumes each. Abu al-Hasan Ali bin al-Husayn bin Ali al-Mas'udi died in 346 AH. He is a very well-known Arab historian, descendant of one of the companions of Muhammad, Abdullah bin Mas'ud, author of 2 books on history, including long sections on Seerah, both mentioned above. All the above luminaries in Islamic history and exegesis refer to Ibn Ishaq's Seerah in one way or another, a testament to his authority and the veracity of his reporting. I would like our listeners to know that a lot of the information that I recite in this chapter is gleaned from the most outstanding translation of Ibn Ishaq's Seerah by Alfred Guillaume in his monumental The Life of Muhammad, which should be a must-read for any of you, whether so-called believers or unbelievers. Anyone having read and studied this book must come out enlightened and affected by its depth of detail and the honesty of its reporting. It is in Ibn Ishaq's Seerah that the night journey and the satanic verses controversies are first reported. He was so earnest that Ibn Hisham had to delete several stories that were too offending upon the character of Muhammad. Several fundamentalist Muhammadan exegetes condemned Ibn Ishaq for having included reports gleaned from first or second generation descendants of converted Jews and Christians. They condemned him because they deliberately perpetuated the falsehood that the Jews and Christians of Arabia were foreign nationals, when in fact They were aboriginal and indigenous Arabians who converted to the monotheistic religions without force or coercion, unlike those who were forced or terrorized into the following of the cult of Muhammad. This hatred of the people of the book is institutionalized in the Quran in numerous unforgiving and unambiguous verses. Ibn Ishaq's reports are as objective as any one of his times could have been, and the proof resides in the fact that he mentions numerous and enlightening stories about Jews and Christians that are unbiased and show them in a singularly benevolent manner, contradicting their distorted and hate-mongering portrayals in the Quran and by the later Muhammadan theologians and hadiths.